Welcome back to the DJ Sessions, where we feature the best DJs and producers from around the world. I'm your host, Aaron, and right now I'm sitting in the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington, and coming in from halfway around the world from Nottingham, UK, is Paul Gribby, AKA Still-Life. How's it going today, Paul?
Well, good, thank you. All really good, and thank you for the opportunity for this interview.
Absolutely. You know, I was checking out some of your tracks, some of your mixes before the show, and I just got to say, it really does hit to my heart. Can you describe to our viewers in so many words? I know what I would call it, but what would you call your style of music that you produce and the sets that you play?
It's quite hard to narrow it down, really, but I quite like emotive music. So the idea with Still-Life was that Still-Life being an art form in many different ways, obviously with painting and that sort of stuff. And what I wanted to do, I wanted Still-Life to be quite artistic in its name and the music, and ideally any artwork that was used as well. So it's quite melodic, and it ranges from anything from ambient to organic house to techno, but it's all with that sort of same sound palette. So the idea with Still-Life was to be able to do live shows and DJ sets of like 3-4 hours long, rather than just doing an hour where you go on and if you're playing the main set, for example, you'll just bang out all the big tunes. But the idea with Still-Life was to come at it from an artistic point of view, not just as another DJ, a bit more artistic and a bit more thought about. So say, for example, if you did a 4-hour set, the idea with Still-Life would be you could start off on down-tempo sets. Say if you're just playing at Mambo, for example, it'd be ideal because you could just start off playing really deep ambient nothingness, wavy sounds and that sort of stuff. And I also do a lot of field recordings to make my tracks sound a lot more realistic. And then you could basically go from organic house into so ambient, organic house, and right up through to techno, but all sticking within that sort of the same sound palette, basically. That's where the idea for Still-Life came from.
And the name Still-Life, that was the idea. The name Still-Life, why did you choose Still-Life?
Because I was looking for, so it took me, I tell you what, I bet I thought about 200 names with my manager that I had at the time. And it was just so hard to find a name that I felt that fitted with me and the persona and the sort of branding and the awareness and the music journey that I wanted to be part of. So I sort of just took a step back and I thought, well, music isn't necessarily thought of unless you're actually deeply involved in the music as an art form. When people think of art, they just generally think of paintings and drawings as being an art form. I mean, there's many different forms of art, isn't there? From, I don't know, well, obviously painting, music, I suppose pottery, anything that catches the eye, photography, imagery, videos. There's many designs, artwork, flyers, record label covers. There's many different sort of things that take on art form. So I really wanted to try and incorporate a visual look as well as the music. So I'm quite a deep thinker myself. So I went into it really deep, and just Still-Life sort of kept appearing of an expression of emotion. That's where it sort of came on. I mean, it took about 6 months to actually come up. Had music made before the name was even confirmed. So yeah.
Do you feel that Still-Life is somewhat of an oxymoron? Because life is not necessarily still. So you're kind of still, but life is always constantly evolving and moving and changing. It never really stays still. Was that something that helped play in the creation of the name?
I hadn't really thought about it in that respect, and I like that, to be fair. No, it wasn't. It was just literally, as I explained, really. But the interesting thing about it is, with what you say, with Still Life, and still, over the last 3 years, I've become quite spiritual and very much into meditation and living within the present moment. I suppose you could almost say still within this life. And yeah, there's no, I hadn't thought about it, but I really like that. I do like that. Yeah.
So, well, you have released on such notable, I would say labels. I'm not sure if are they labels or how do you characterize them? Because I grew up with these two as part of my staple go-to as a kid: Global Underground and Cafe Del Mar. Are those considered labels, or are they just they're more compilation kind of platforms? Is that correct?
Yes, they are. Yeah. I mean, Global Underground is one of my was one of my dream labels, to be fair. That sort of came from I had an alias before Still Life, and I did, as is probably most DJs and artists do, did things in the wrong way, shall we say. Just releasing to any record label that would take me, going in the studio on a Saturday and having it signed by Tuesday, not really taking any care or love and attention, and then with that rushing moment, not even really liking the music that I released. So with the Still Life thing came along when I had a manager, and we said I wanted to start afresh with all my ideas, making the music, the sound palette that I wanted to stick to, albeit ambient, house or techno. And then the Global Underground thing came along because I wanted to be releasing on only a certain level of label, to try and take my career forward. And then I contacted Global Underground with a down tempo track for their Electric Calm compilations, and they literally got straight back to my manager within about 3 hours. And I was like, amazing. Just like, wow, first release, Still Life, Global Underground, we'll go with that. And
Yeah.
and then with Cafe Mambo, that was a similar sort of thing, really. I wrote another down tempo track, and my manager Pete Goodin sent it off to Cafe Mambo, and they really liked it as well, so they signed that. And then that same track went on to Cafe Del Mar's compilation as well. So and to be honest, that gave me a different way of looking at things as well, especially with the down tempo stuff, because I was originally coming back before Still Life, looking at everything as a DJ and wanting DJ gigs, which predominantly led to 4/4 sort of stuff. So when it came into the ambient era, it was like, well, how am I going to actually get DJ gigs playing ambient music? It's going to be a whole different ball game. And then the compilation thing came in, where it was potentially a way of monetizing certain releases, and also leading on to the more eclectic electronic festivals, such as Stella Polaris. There's a festival in Denmark that I play at, and they've got a record label called Stella Polaris Music, and they do big down tempo festivals, free, and they're family orientated as well, and they're absolutely amazing over in Denmark. They're sort of set up for one. So Friday night they'll be in one part of Denmark, Saturday night they've been in the next, and so within about 3 weeks that I've done about 5 or 6 festivals, and they do that every year. And yeah, so it was opening the doors to a different thought process, again, more of a deep, meaningful thought process that needed, rather than going in the studio on a Saturday and getting the tracks on by Tuesday. Yeah, so you end up with it's a lot slower process, but then when you crack it on the labels, it's a lot more rewarding emotionally. Yeah, it's a lot more exciting.
Here in Seattle a few years back, I think we were talking a little bit about the pre-show about how I listened to a down-tempo ambient station by Groove Salad that's produced by Soma FM out of San Francisco. And one of my dreams was to always create a bar called Groove Salad, and all I would ever play was Groove Salad or down-tempo ambient music. And I haven't financed my own bar establishment yet. We did start at an absinthe bar called Absinthe a few years back. We were doing a down-tempo ambient night, and it was like, come in, drink your absinthe, chill, melodic. Because in our market right now, there's a lot of house. There's trance making its way. There's drum and bass and all that. But I wanted to do something different, something where people could come and kind of chill pre-funk before they go out and just have a chill night. So I always have been on that kind of down tempo ambient kind of melodic kick. But when listening to one of your mixes, I can hear you kind of start out here and you bring it up. And it's just really awesome to get the audience. It's not just always just, okay, I'm just chilling. Okay, it's just cool. I'm on the beach, but to almost a pickup where you're almost dancing with it, but it's not so boom in your face, like you said, like the big name tracks. So, and speaking of tracks, hopefully I pronounced this right, the Chrysanthemum Seal, you did a remix for Unkle. You mentioned Stella Polaris. Yeah. Tell us about that, and what was the inspiration or choice by using that track and remixing that?
I've always been a massive fan of Unkle, and then the remix started, to be fair, under my old alias. I did a more melodic techno remix of Heaven Unkle. I just did it for a bit of fun initially, and then my friend was on the Unkle forums, and he just shared a SoundCloud link on all the Unkle forums, and then I got an email from Pablo, who was part of Unkle back then, saying, I've heard your remix of Heaven. Could you send me a copy? So I sent him a copy. And then fast forward a couple of months, it turns out that James Lavelle, who was obviously part of Unkle, was playing it in all of his sets. And he got asked by DazedDigital.com to do a DJ mix of all of his favorite Unkle tracks. And he put my remix on. And so then the track, from which actually just started off as a personal project, totally by fluke, ended up getting a release, an official release. So then when I started Still-Life, I'd always thought to myself, oh, Heaven needs a more of an orchestral sound because the original is a beautiful track anyway. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a remix of it, but not put it out there this time. So I did a remix of it, and then I sent it to James, and he loved it straight away. So I says, can we work on a release on this one again? And he said, yeah, no problem. So I wanted to find a good home for it. So that's where Stella Polaris came in, because they've got people like anyone from Robbie Williams to Erasure to Trent Moller, Moby. So I wanted it to, again, sit in a good home. That took a year and a half, that process did, from James hearing it. No, from originally making it and sitting there thinking, I'm really pleased with this, to actually getting it released took a year and a half. And then when Stella Polaris wanted to put it on vinyl as well, it was just amazing. So it was just like, and that is one of my tracks that I actually really, I'm proud of making, not just because of Unkle, but just because of how it sounds. It sort of took a long time, but to write, but the gist of it was done within a day. And I'm not very confident, shall we say, on the chords and the keys and the notes. So that's where most of the time I'm confident in creating sounds and getting sound palettes and atmospheres. Comes to notage and pianos and keyboards, I tend to get a bit frightened, to be fair. But with this one, I thought to myself, I'm just going to sit with it. I'm going to sit with it. And I literally, it was one of my first tracks where I thought, right, if you really want to start getting more melodic content, you're going to have to sit there and face your demons on these notes. And I thought, right, so in 2 weeks' time, this day, I'm going to sit down, I've put aside, and it doesn't matter if it takes me all weekend just to get the first 4 chords right. I'm going to sit there and do it with this Heaven track. And I did, yeah. And it ended up, once I'd got everything sort of played into MIDI and dragged about a bit, and I was like, yeah, I've actually done this. And then it was just a matter of finding the right sounds, and and that's the outcome, which I was really pleased with.
And you described a little bit about your production process. How many tracks do you actually produce given in any given month? Are you a perfectionist and it's one track and I don't do anything until that's done, or do you have multiple projects you're working on at all times?
I think the danger is, the danger is, I think with producing music, I used to be terrible with my DJ sets as well. If my DJ set drifted a little bit and I was like, oh no, that was a crap mix, DJ set, and it's just like the human touch is actually sometimes a lot better. And so with my productions, it can get a bit, it does it get a bit mind blowing, because I have to have about 3 or 4 tracks on the go at the same time, because I could listen to one track and it really pleased with it, and then I always happen to start getting lost and then start doubting the track. Then I have to start another one, and then I'll work on that one for a little bit. Maybe, depending on how these 2 are going, just start a rough sketch of another one and then work on the 2 or 3. I try to keep it down to 2 at the same time if possible. But the whole process it follows the same pattern. I sit there, if I'm inspired and I sit in the studio, I'll sit there and go, right, this is what I want to do. I'll start creating it and I'll be really pleased with that. I'll be, yeah, amazing. Go for a coffee, come back and I'm like, oh, that's not so good. What happened from going to get a coffee to come back? Why do I not like it anymore? Every time. And I'm like, yeah, there we go. The self-doubt kicks in, which is just the bane of every producer's life. And then I'll open another project, and then get going on that one. And then say maybe the next day I'll listen to the first track and I'll be like, oh yeah, you've done the same thing as always, doubted yourself, and then just carry on this one. But I'm trying to, well, in fact, I am doing, incorporating a lot more organic sounds. So I'm doing a lot of going around with my Tascam or even my phone, to be honest, and just recording anything from birds to putting the phone in between trees just to see what sound they make. I've got a 5-year-old son called August, and he likes to, he sits there now and he'll say, if we sat there just relaxing a little bit outside, and he'll say, shall we record this, Daddy? So we get the phone out and we'll sit and record the fields and the grass and the birds and the bees, and then I get him to hit sticks and break sticks and snap sticks, and I've started getting a lot of inspiration of literally. So with the ambient sound, I was doing that pretty much from the beginning, but it's sort of, I find it easier to write ambient music because it's just more noted, more droney, and it's about the simpleness and the sound quality of the sound rather than how technical it is. Where I find most people find it hard to make ambient, where I'm the opposite way around. So then when I was making the organic house, I was like, I need to start incorporating field recordings, what I do in ambient, but into organic house. So hence the getting August to snap twigs and break trees and ruffle leaves, and actually use the snapped twigs as claps, and then using them as claps and snares and little fills. So get the birds and the bees and whatever in the background with delay and reverb over a kick, muddy the kick, get the snares and the claps. But literally, say for example, I've got a whole 2-minute section of twig snapping, birds twiddling around, and August snapping trees, and he's probably talking as well. I'll literally get it in simple on Ableton and just find a section that I like, find the one little sample, do that on 3 or 4 like snaps or twigs or sections, and then literally put them onto the MIDI keyboard and play 4 at the same time, just loose. So, and then it's what it's doing, it's creating a real time section of like claps, but there's 4 different sounds in there. So they'll all be sort of off the grid in different ways. And over say 16 claps, you've got 16 different velocity hits, and with layers as well. And it makes it sound really, really more live and organic and real. And it's become a lot more enjoyable doing it that way as well.
Does he get a credit on your tracks?
Yeah, he should do. Well, to be honest, I wrote an album which is still not seen the day of light day yet. It's supposed to be in September, which is a full on album with really dark ambient stuff. It was when I was going through a bit of a dark time. We had a marriage breakup, and I was doing a degree for music at the same time, and part of the degree was to do an album. And I was like, do an album? Oh, something I've always wanted to do, but how am I going to do that? And I was talking to my tutor. It's like, well, do it with what's going on in your life at the minute. And I'm like, if I do that, it's going to be dark as anything. He went, well, do it. So I did this 10 track album, and it starts off really dark and droney and just all random noises. And then as the months is going on, I'm feeling better and better and better. The whole album lightens up. So with you saying with August, now just literally moments before August was born, so I'm there with Mum in hospital. I mean, what else would I do? Why his mum was in pain? Get my Tascam recorder out and record all the noises from her belly. So one of the tracks on the album is called what's it called? August, because all those names August. He was born in January, so one of the tracks is called August is a day in January. And basically a lot of that track you can hear his heartbeat, and there's that within the track. So I actually put him before he was even born on one of his tracks. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll send you the track. Yeah.
So what was the weirdest moment you've ever heard one of your tracks play?
What, actually being out live?
Yeah.
To be honest, I've never actually heard one of my tracks out. Only when I've actually played it. But I've had an instant, an occasion recently where with the Heaven Unkle track, there was a guy that signed to a label that I'm really keen to work with, and I really like his stuff. Really like his stuff. He's making some really good stuff. So I wanted to do a collaboration with him. So I contacted him just to say, really like your stuff. So no, first of all, contacted him saying, yeah, really like your stuff. And he got back to me straight away and says, this is really random. I played your Unkle remix last week, and so, I don't know where he played it. Nice to hear from you. So that obviously led quite nicely into being able to do a collaboration. We're actually working on 4 tracks together now. So that's like another little. So I've not exactly heard any of my tracks actually being played out apart from when I've played, but I think it's quite nice when you reach out to an artist that I admire and I really like his stuff, and then he actually told me that he played one of my tracks last week, and yes, they'd love to do a collaboration. So yeah, so it's especially with the Unkle one. The Unkle's done a lot for me on both occasions, to be fair, in many in many ways. In many ways, really gets you noticed being associated with artists like that. One thing was with the Unkle one, it really hit home when I actually looked on the Unkle SoundCloud link, and there was my track that they'd uploaded. So it's stuff like that, which is all good.
And who was that artist again?
What, the artist that I'm doing the collaboration with?
Yeah.
Ed, you know, I can't pronounce his name. I'm not even going to announce it. It begins with ED. Enrico, I think.
It happens. It happens. We were talking a little bit before the show of artists that we're working with, and you know, sometimes you don't know the correct pronunciations, especially when you're dealing with people from different countries. And you know, I get people from Germany and people from Thailand, and I'm like, right before the show, I was like, how do I pronounce your name? How do I pronounce it? A funny story, you know, Lindsay Sterling, the artist. I was doing an interview with her, and I hope I say this right and I don't mess it up. It's Mako. So it's either Macau or Mako. I think anyways, I said it wrong at the end of the interview, and Lindsay says, right there, she goes, Darren, just one thing. I go, what? And she goes, you pronounced this name wrong at the end of the interview. And I went, oh, I didn't even know it, didn't even think about it, you know? So I had to go back and do a little soundbite, little editing, little magic. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. It was fun, but yeah, I totally understand and get you there. And now moving on to a little bit of a different subject here. I see a lot of vinyl behind you.
Oh yeah.
And it looks like you got, is that 4 Techniques up there, or is that
Techniques and 2 CDJs?
Oh, 2. Okay, there's a mixer.
Yeah, it's Techniques there, 2 CDJs, Techniques, mixer, Techniques, and Techniques.
Techniques. So 3 Techniques. Okay. And what was the first record? Do you ever remember the first record that you bought?
I can remember the first record that I got brought me, which was a 7-inch of Elvis Presley, Jailhouse Rock.
And was that the time when you knew right there that I love vinyl and I wanted to get into DJing, or was this just the childhood kind of getting a single? And
when I was younger, I always used to get this, I didn't even understand it. When I used to listen to music, it used to make me feel a certain way. It really did. And when I was like, so that Elvis Presley track, I would have been about maybe 10. And I just used to play music and just used to dance around on the sofa, but not playing music and dancing around on the sofa. I mean, playing music, dancing around on the sofa and tingling and being 10 and just not connecting the dots. And then I can remember when I was, fast forward 5 years, when I was 15, just started going out, drinking with my friends. And all my friends were like, yeah, we're going to pool tonight. And I was just like, are we going to dance? Are we going to dance? And it was all the commercial side of stuff then. And all I was concerned about is dancing. And the same again, I didn't connect the music to how I was actually feeling. And then I came up with this idea that I wanted to be a DJ. I was going to be a mobile DJ. And then my sister says to me, this is the sort of DJing you need to do. And she passed me a tape, I think it was Graham Park, from a party in London. And then I pressed play and heard the kick drum, and then that was it. It just totally changed my life. So back then, that was when it was just all about vinyl. So I started going out to parties with my sister. Where Alistair Whitehead was playing at Cool Cat in Nottingham. And just watching them and just being mesmerised by these black bits of plastic just going round and round. And when you look at the side of a Technics and you see the light go across, and even now talking about it just makes me feel a certain way. Yeah, so my sister totally changed my life. I mean, I would have been doing mobile DJing and probably not for the vinyl thing, but yeah. And then I can remember one time going to Cool Cat sneaking in when I was 16. And I was just there. I can remember the kick drum was pumping out the speakers. I can remember just dancing, looking at the kick drum and going, I could listen to this kick drum for the rest of my life. And that was it. And I am doing. And yeah, vinyl is just, I just love it. I love it. I was playing with Still-Life. I was doing DJ sets, playing more minimal sort of stuff. And then as I was looking for a sound to go with ambient that could go on from ambient not smoothly, that's where the organic house came in. But there's not a lot of vinyl around for organic house, unfortunately. But so I literally got rid of my pen drives, apart from certain pen drives, but it was 2 record bags again, and it felt so much better. It really did.
And how do you feel about the control surfaces that come out for vinyl, you know, to mix digital and a vinyl kind of setup? Or have you ever played with the device? It's called a Pulse. Have you seen the Pulse?
Is it like Tractor?
It's a little stick that you put on your turntables, and then it just spins around, so you don't need a control surface vinyl. And it's just a little stick you put on. I think it should be called Pulse. I've seen it around a couple of years ago, and it was pretty awesome because you don't need any needles for it, like you do with the control surfaces.
Do you use your vinyl or?
No, so there's the control surface vinyl that I think Serato had the control vinyl. Maybe Tractor has control vinyl as well. I'm not a DJ by any means, so please don't murder me. I should know this after doing a show for 12 years and being in the game for 30. I should know these technical things. But I believe, you know, I know Serato had the Surface. I believe Tractor might have one with Pulse. It's just about as big as a USB drive, and you don't need any needles. You just stick it right on the turntable, and just it spins, does the things, and it reads it via your computer software and lets you basically control a vinyl kind of surface with your digital music, but you don't need the vinyl control surface.
Amazing. I'll have to look it out.
Pretty cool stuff. Didn't know if you knew about that, checked into that or not, but
the nearest I got to was using Tractor with vinyl. But then it was just an absolute nightmare to try and unplug and plug in between other DJs. And it really started to come in ahead. I got a gig at Glastonbury, and I was told that I explained that I'm on Tractor. I was told that it's okay because the DJ will be playing in front of you and then you can set up behind them. I'm like, perfect. When we got there, they hadn't got that arrangement set up. And so the guy who was doing the sound had to set Tractor up for me. And I was playing on 4 decks in Tractor. And whether it was my fault or his fault, he put the phono leads in the wrong ones. So rather than it going 1, 2, 3, 4 in the mixer, sort of like 1 was controlling 3, 2 was controlling 1. And when I got on, I'm like, this is so confusing. And yeah, I in the end, I had to stop Tractor and just use CDs because I was like, this is just far too confusing rather than going from 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's when it started really hitting me, thinking, oh, this is actually really annoying. And then the CDJs came out, so that was the game changer because you technically had Tractor in a box or with a pen drive. But then that was really weird because you was just walking to a club with a pen drive and a handbag with your headphones. That felt weird as well because it didn't really feel like you were getting out of the car to go to a gig. You're constantly like, where's my records? Oh, they're in my hand. Yeah, it's all, I don't know. I think I'm all for technology, but I feel that my personal opinion is that certain areas are getting a bit too easy. And I totally get that this technology enables you to do more wizardry and effects and that sort of stuff. I can't help feel that, I know it's the whole vinyl versus digital debate. No matter what you use, it doesn't make you a DJ, or doesn't make you a good or bad DJ. It's totally irrelevant. What I'm saying. Don't want no arguments. But I think it's changed so much. I mean, used to be able to sort of listen to a mix years ago and it was just vinyl and appreciate the fact that that person's mixing is just amazing, or the track selection is amazing. But now it's really hard to decipher what a good DJ really is. Even down to, it used to be, I've got this white label, you haven't. How did you get that white label? Well, they've only made 10. And so it was all about you mixing, not necessarily all about your mixing, but it was about the track selection. And if you could mix it well as well, it was easier to tell your story and talk to people what you're about. But I mean, then you've obviously got people like James Lavelle and Richie Hawtin that just take it up to a whole new level. But I think funny enough, I can mix on vinyl better than CDJs. It's really strange. The annoying thing is, obviously, you can't loop, so your tracks run out. So sometimes you can't make your mix as smooth as you can. But I can mix better on vinyl, and I do enjoy vinyl more because each mix is this going to work? Am I going to pull this off with vinyl? But I don't know. It's an endless debate, isn't it? Of there's no right or wrong, that's for sure. And it doesn't matter what equipment you use, doesn't make you a good or bad DJ, but it has changed so much. And I think I used to be, I need to get the next CDJs, but I'm not bothered about chasing that anymore. I want to sort of, if anything, I am going more back to vinyl. As soon as there's enough organic house flowing about, with vinyl, I'll just be purely vinyl again.
Do you think with the advent of 3D printer technology, people might be able to actually start pressing their own vinyl from home?
That would be rather than sit there burning CDs or flick through record box, you just print your own vinyl. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Speaking about DJs and you know, the rise of DJ culture in a sense. I mean, it's always been big overseas, but we've seen the huge rise of the electronic music culture in the States over the last few years. I mean, when I was going to a kid at club, it was a complete underground thing. This is 20 some odd years ago, 25 years ago. But now it's kind of mainstream. Do you feel that the mainstream media treats famous DJs in a different way than famous pop stars?
I've never really thought about it, but I think famous DJs, I think sort of pop stars, maybe a band or Pink or something, sort of, yeah, full on. Yeah, if anything, I would feel that they don't take DJs so seriously as a pop star. And I tend to find that in certain areas or certain mindsets of people, if you're a famous singer, there doesn't seem to be any age limit, where it tends to be, do you think you're getting a bit old to DJ? I've had it myself, and it's like, do you think you're not getting a bit old for this now? And it's like, I think that's the only sort of thing I would say really with the pop star and the DJ thing. But I suppose certain DJs, especially in the EDM world, because that's become where it's become more mainstream, isn't it? They are pop stars in their own right, in a way, just doing it in a different, putting it out there in a different format, I suppose, aren't they? Because they're not really singers; they're more sort of beat makers and producers. And yeah, it's interesting how it's gone. It's just crazy how it's gone. I think the more commercial it's got, it has lost a lot of, not for everybody, but the passion of why people want to be a DJ. I think they see a lot of the bigger, and this isn't me slating EDM, because I'm just saying EDM because EDM is the biggest house genre within the commercial scene. EDM artists, and they just think they just fly around the world having an easy life, and they just want the money and the girls and the fortune, or the boys and the fame and fortune. But for one the EDM stars that are at the top of the game, say David Guetta, etc., it's not an easy job for them, for one. They don't just sit there watching Netflix. I think David Guetta, one of the hardest working DJs that is supposed to be out there. But I think the younger generation don't see that, say, for example, David Guetta came from the underground scene, and to get where he is today, he didn't do it by not putting in his graft. So I think that's almost like the difference with it. I think DJing probably comes across more accessible and easier to do than becoming a pop star, because you don't have to be able to sing to be a DJ, and that's good because I can't sing. I could sing to a lot of deaf people, but that's about it.
They still might be able to hear with the bass resonating, and you know, and feel the music. So I mean, that could be a form in itself. What are your thoughts on the DJ Mag Top 100?
Now that's opening a can of worms. I think it's. I mean, it's the same thing again. What does, in my opinion, something like that? Whoever, I don't even know who is in the top 100, to be totally honest. But let's just say whoever's in there or in the top 10, are they there because they are the best DJ in the world, which what it's supposed to be, the top 100 DJs? Or is it because they've got better marketing? Or is it because they've got better hype? Because being the most famous person in the world, technically, within the DJ era, the DJ world, doesn't mean you're a good DJ. Doesn't mean you're a bad DJ, but it doesn't mean you're a good DJ. It just means that you've got more people voting for you, if the voting is totally genuine as well. Does it mean, I mean, I don't know. Does it mean that you've got more money to throw at it to get votes? And it's all very, I think the whole world is changed, and that's a whole other debate. But it's, I think at IMS, I just got back from IMS last week, and Pete Tong has started a DJ Academy. They actually launched why they started their interview. So I think it's PeteTong-academy.com, djacademy.com. So basically, it plays into what you just asked really about the DJ Top 100, because if you look around any competition, labels, management, they all want to know how much social media you've got, how active you are on social media, how many people follow you, how many people comment. I mean, most of the DJ competitions and remix competitions are do a 60-minute DJ mix, and whoever gets the most listens and the most comments goes into the top 10. So yeah, again, that's nothing to do with how good a DJ they are. You could have one person who only had one listen, who's the grandma's listened, and then you could have this an amazing James Lavelle, for example, the new James Lavelle, and you could have one DJ that's had 1 million listens, but all they've done is just press play and sing. I'm not saying sing's bad, but and you know what I'm saying, and that's the thing with the DJ Top 100. And so with Pete Tong, he launched DJ Academy, and it looks pretty good, to be fair. They're going really in depth over them. They've got Nicole Major, is it? Pete Tong, Jamie Jones, Tish, and Cole Cox, showing exactly how they do their tricks. But they've also got a talent pool as well. And the talent pool will enable people to connect and network with other DJs and promoters, but not because you've got social media. It's all on how good you are on the decks. Because that's one thing Pete Tong was like, just sat there, said it's just, he wasn't dissing anything. He was just saying that it's just not become about how good a DJ you are. That when he started, it was all about how good a DJ you were.
Absolutely.
yeah, with the top 100, it's become about how good you are at marketing, how many followers you've got, not how good a DJ you are. I mean, technically, how can somebody like James Lavelle not be number one all the time if it's going on how good a DJ you are?
Yeah.
Put Lavelle and another DJ that just mixes into a competition, who's going to win technically? James Lavelle at the time.
You mentioned James a few times, and so who is your favorite DJ, and can you tell us why?
Well, I think James I admire because of his wizardry, and yeah, it's if I would probably not necessarily go for a music. I would say technical ability. It's going to be someone like James or Richie Houghton, because they do take things to the whole next level. I think Richie's on, I don't know who it was last time I looked at him, he was on Light Tractor, and then I've been able to link up as well. And but I don't know, I think technically I would say exactly like James Lavelle, but then Cole Cox and the sort of usual suspects. I think I tend to go by per set rather than by per DJ. But if I was going to go into my car tomorrow and put a mix on, it would be people like Lee Burridge, Lost Desert, that sort of era really. But then again, I love music that's not DJ led, like Oliver Arnold. Get a lot of inspiration from him. John Hopkins, love John Hopkins. And John Hopkins does some good DJ sets with his Infex units, his Chaos Pads.
So, and you mentioned a few moments ago when you were at IMS about hearing Pete Tong talking about starting his academy. You have an affiliation with an academy as well, correct?
Yes,
the 4-4 DJ Academy.
Yeah, 4-4 DJ Academy in Nottingham.
And tell me a little, tell our listeners a little bit about that. Is that in person? Is it an online or it's hybrid?
It's both really. The 4-4's been going for quite a few years, a number of years in Nottingham, and it's. I've been, to be honest, I wanted to be part of 4-4 for such a long time. Myself and Charlie, have been talking just before lockdown. We got talking, so it's probably a couple of years ago. And then obviously lockdown happened, so everything got put on hold. And after lockdown, I contacted Charlie again, and then he put me in contact with his manager, Luke. And so we're now offering DJ lessons, which Luke takes care of, and then I take care of Ableton and music production. And also, you're going to be introducing events-based teachings and how to get signed, how to represent yourself, how not to represent yourself on social media, all that sort of stuff as well. And we also do we've been doing some stuff for sort of disadvantaged people as well, that necessarily haven't got the money to be able to fund themselves to actually learn how to DJ or music produce. We've been doing it on a Monday night in West Bridgeford in Nottingham, which is actually a part of a youth club. And then the 14s, between 14, in fact, I thought most of them were like 16, 17, but some of them are 14. And they're and a new music sound, which I never heard of, called drill music. I don't know if you've heard of that. I hadn't until 8 weeks ago. It's really like heavy hip hop and grime. So when I went in to teach one of them, well, they all had call coming, about 10 of them come at the same time. And then, as what I now know, is they spit lyrics down the microphone, and they just want to sort of download instrumentals off YouTube and then spit lyrics on top of it. So after the first session, I went back, proudly found loads of grime samples, put a grime track together, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go down there next week. I'll show them this. I'm pleased to point that I've made this grime track from what I thought was grime. I can try and get them to spit lyrics on top of this track. When I put it on, they just laughed at me. And I was like, they went, this is not drill, this is grime, this is not drill. I'm like, well, what's the difference? I felt like my mum and dad. Every track sounds the same. Yeah, so it's been quite an inspiration really to they sort of started off like hoods up, sort of head down, giving it sort of the gangster vibes, and then by like 6-7 weeks in, they're just totally different, and they're a lot more confident, and they've dropped the attitude, and that's really nice to see. And that's what we like to do with 4/4 as well. It's not just about the advantaged people that can afford to do it. I think there's a lot of disadvantaged people of all ages out there that've got the talent, but not necessarily the know-how. Yeah, so we've got a good thing going down there with 4/4.
I was just gonna say, my next question was gonna be, would you recommend a career as a DJ to young kids, and what are the pros and cons of that? And
I think
hearing that you're working with youth is already kind of led right into that next question.
I think totally, yes. Is it easy? Far from it. You've got to, I mean, there's been many times over the years when I've just thought, can I actually carry this on anymore? Can I do this anymore? Because it's just sort of heartbreaking, disappointing. And that's just the pros. No. It is one of the most rewarding things you'll do, but actually to become a DJ, standing behind the decks DJing, is that it tends to be nowadays the last thing that you actually really need to be able to do. And it's become about music, making music, your social media and all that sort of stuff. And it's quite sad really, because it's all about what's going to sell tickets and bums on seats. And if you get booked on a local level, it's about how many tickets can you sell. And you miss out on a lot of good DJs. With Blend, I don't book DJs because they can sell tickets. I book DJs because they're good DJs, simple as that. If they can bring some people with them and push it on social media, amazing. But I don't book them based off what they can bring, because they 9 times out of 10 they haven't, not their own fault, they haven't been playing long enough to have the experience. But yeah, DJing it's amazing, but I think be prepared to be more diverse. And one thing that if I could tell my younger self is, don't try and make a living just off DJing until you get to a certain level. There's many different areas that you can do, which is now I've sort of learned, is DJing events, promoting, teaching people your knowledge, compilations, that sort of stuff. And I'm actually getting into making music for films and film scores now as well, because that was what I did my degree on. So yeah, don't think so. And I was a bit narrow-minded, to be fair. Yeah. And follow people, and don't be afraid to reach out to anybody for advice, but make sure you're doing it because you want to be a DJ and you enjoy music. Because if you don't, within a year or two, you're just going to be wanting to go on to the next thing, because you've got to like it to stay in it. You've got to do it because you enjoy doing it. You really have.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about going out there and not just looking at DJing as sort of a form of a paycheck, but getting involved in all aspects of the business to kind of get a really well-rounded experience. One of the things we do with the DJ sessions is we have always had what we call an open table policy. And we want people to come and play on the show, whether you're a beginner or whether you're a David Guetta, and you're up the top of the prime. It's not just for the elite. It's not just based on your socials. And one of the ways we do that is one of our events. Maybe you've heard of them. Have you ever heard of what's called a silent disco?
Yeah.
Or a silent concert? We do those events here in the Seattle area, and we'll be launching it in up and down the West Coast here later this year. But one of the things I like about it is I'm a huge foodie, and I like a buffet kind of situation. And with silent disco, silent concerts is what we're rebranding it as. We have 7-channel headsets, and most people have 3-channel or 4-channel. I can set up 7 DJ booths and give people an opportunity to play at one of our shows for 4 hours, record that set for them, put it up on our site, and let them be able to share that experience, but also invite their friends and family down so they can get some stage time. They can get some promo time. They can get saying, I'm playing an actual event, Not that I have anything against people live streaming from their bedroom, because God forbid, that's exactly where we started 12 years ago. But, getting people a chance to get out and play physical events, just like a local promoter. We set up a residency here recently, and he says, hey, all your DJs, doesn't matter how good they are, they're going to be playing that opening time slot at 9 p.m. until I start feeling comfortable with them. And I know they can work the room right. And I know they got the kicks in. And then I will start putting them in to those later slots closer to the headliner, as trust is built. And the only way you're going to get that kind of experience is if you're able to play in a club and know what that's like, and hearing it on that kind of sound system, and not in your bedroom, as a bedroom DJ or out, in certain different types of events. You just got to kind of get those kicks in. So I like that you have that pathway with the 4/4, Academy, that is going to kind of, it's not just about learning how to DJ. It's not just learning how to make beats. It's going to try to walk them through social media practices, what to do, what not to do. You're doing that with events. Now, going into events, you have an event that it's been a long time kind of on hold, but Blend is the event that you're a part of. Tell us a little bit about Blend, how that works into the whole Still-Life mix.
Well, the Blend was originally 2000 that started. We ran for 4 years, and it literally, we was about to break through. I can remember it took me 18 months to book Pete Tong, and then finally booked him. And then it was, back then Derby wasn't too happy with the amount of people that were sort of coming to Derby. It almost felt like Blend got a little bit too big for Derby. And things like doors that were fine for 4 years within the nightclub were all of a sudden becoming a health and safety issue. And as it happens to a lot of nightclubs, and then there was 8 rooms in total, 3 rooms of music, but 8 rooms. And we had a bedroom in one place. And there was 8, it was like a rabbit warren. It was amazing. The venue was amazing. And unfortunately, as we grew, we weren't even, back then, we weren't going below 1,000 people every single Saturday night without fail. And then bringing a lot of people to hotels, restaurants, bars. People coming from Scotland. No word of eye, people coming down from Scotland. And I think Derby the council just didn't like it, as what happens with music venues. And all of a sudden, anything that was like, I can remember there's a bit of like a glass pane over a door in the middle room, the white room it was called. That was fine for 4 years. All of a sudden, no, that's a problem. Fire safety. It's been fine for 4 years. So that's what happened with that. And then we couldn't find a venue that was decent enough. So 5 years later, we did a venue called Sin. And that went really well. And then we left Sin to go to a more underground venue, which is called the Royal. We had a Pete Tong again for that one, for the opening night. That was really good. And then that owner decided to sell the venue. And then it was a case of, well, there's venue-less in Derby, because then Derby's really quiet. So Vines have been asking me for a couple of years how to do it, if we wanted to do Blend. And I kept saying no, because I didn't want to do a classics thing. There's nothing wrong with classics. I love classics, but to move forward, in my opinion, you have to play new music. And plus, I've played classics for years ago. I've done the classics thing, and when it was new, and there's so much good new music out there. So I just kept thinking to myself, well, if you don't do it, if you do it as classics, you're not going to enjoy it, and you're only going to have 3 a year. And that's not an option. If I'm going to do it, I want to do it properly. I thought, if you don't do it, you're not going to do it. But if you at least try and rebrand it and do it new music, as if it was still going today, and it doesn't work, you've not lost anything. You've only gained. You've got everything to win and nothing to lose. And so I rebranded the logo, rebranded the music, got some good solid residents, and yeah, so far it's going really well. We're doing once a month in an outdoor space called Vines, which is predominantly it's a pub backyard, but it's a lot better than what it sounds, because once we get a stage, set up, lights, a real nice sound system, and it just works. It just really, really works. and we just run that for 6 events a year.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. If I was over there, I'd be attending. I'd definitely be getting out there. Hey, is there anything else you want to let our DJ Sessions fans know before we let you go to this evening for you, morning for me?
No, just keep a lookout on Still-Life. All my stuff's on stilllifemusic.com, and also Blend, or the Blend social, Blend Clubbing social, because we've got a lot planned for this year, and we might have some secret information coming towards September, October for Blend. And we've got another sort of little thing that we're kicking off in the next couple of months as well, which I can't quite say about just yet, unfortunately. But on our next chat, I'll have the full information. I'll be able to release it to the wild. So
Awesome. We're looking forward for that next chat. We will definitely be following up with you here in the near future. Paul, thank you so much for coming on the DJ Sessions. I had a great time. We'll talk with you soon.
It's been amazing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
See you soon.
See ya. And on that note, don't forget, you can go to our website, thedjsessions.com. Find us on Twitter, find us on TikTok, find us on Instagram, even the Facebooks, the DJ Sessions. We're out there. This is Darren coming to you from the virtual studios in Seattle, Washington with Still-Life. Always get the fingers crossed, pointed the wrong ways. Coming in from Nottingham, UK for the DJ Sessions. And remember, on the DJ Sessions, the music never stops.